How is it going, you lovely lot? Happy Monday. Welcome back. It's Park to Prem. Today is the final episode. It's 123. Today we've got the save overview video. We are going to kick things off with a little look back on the most recent season, dive into some different save games at points through history, going all the way back to when we started at Rugby Town. Remember when I got told I was going to be fired if I didn't win 5 games or whatever it was? Yeah, I have save games from around that era to have a look at, which is always fun. And then to wrap things up today, we're going to look at the club history and stuff as it is in 2037. Now, of course, it goes without saying, if you didn't see last episode on Friday, you should go watch it. Champions League and FA Cup final. And I know before we run the intro, people are wondering, Jack, can we access these save games? And the answer is you will be able to in around a week or two's time. For channel members, though, who are first team regular and above, these files are going to be available today. And on top of that, if you are a first team member, channel member, little heads up, we've got a stream today. So if there's a time to become a channel member and see what it's all about, try before you, I don't know, take the plunge and commit long term. It's a pretty good time right now. Anyway, for one final time this year, before we do that in the future videos, I suppose, which might have the same intro, we're going to run the Park to Prem intro one last time as Rugby Town manager. Let's get into things. I'm ready. I'm excited. Editing Jack, you know what to do. I feel like these final episodes are always a little bit of a kind of a weird situation. There is so much I could theoretically cram into these videos that honestly the best thing to do is make the save games available like we do for you guys to jump into. But to end things today, we will start with a little look at the end of the season. And here you can see the signings we made in our final year. Did we really make this fewer transfers? I guess we did. I mean, Alexi is one signing of the year. I feel like Alexi could be at the club for a long little while. That's an oxymoron. That doesn't make sense, does it? To be fair, I say that. He's currently on a contract only for another 2 years. He'd only sign on a 3-year deal initially. But what a player this guy's turned out to be. He started the season really, really slowly, but ultimately, anyone who gets double-figure goals and assists in the Premier League has had a pretty bloody good year. 7.34 rating for him. Feel like there were times where he did go missing, but maybe that is just down to adapting to a new league, a new team, a new tactical system. I feel like I agree with this assessment. Of course, in terms of the end of season results, I don't really want to look at this. This is all quite sad, isn't it? Premier League, we finished runners-up, of course, behind Man City. On the final day, we needed them to lose. They didn't. Champions League final, we lost 3-2 against AC Milan. An AC Milan team that I forgot to mention last episode, we actually beat in the group stage 1-0. Yeah, at least we won the FA Cup, right? FA Cup final, 10-goal thriller. That was the Rugby Town way. We have that game to look back on with a bit of positivity. Club's finances are in a really healthy spot. Club reputation as well on the up. I'm hoping at this point I am leaving the club in a kind of situation where they are going to be self-sufficient going into the future. Premier League money does tend to keep teams afloat, and a few years now of Champions League football is hopefully going to leave the club in a fairly stable way. You can see here the best 11 for the year. I'm very surprised that Mateus has snuck in with 19 appearances. I feel like that is mostly down to the fact that Diop has constantly been injured this year, so he's not had an extended run, whereas Mateus played against a lot of the whipping boys that we went up against. A lot of the teams that just weren't very good in Europe, in the FA Cup. He scored a load in them. I mean, you can see here, 6 goals, 4 assists in 5 FA Cup games. This guy is all about the FA Cup. Fans Player of the Year went to Alex. Young Player of the Year went to Alex. Signing of the season, we already talked about that. That went to Alexi. Reptar didn't achieve a lot this year. He did get goal of the season for what it's worth. And here we have a final look at the manager timeline. You know what? I'm not going to go for all this now. If you really want to look through the save game, I feel like this is probably a good way to relive history, isn't it? But yeah, you know what? Probably not video friendly. I'm clicking through all this stuff that I normally care so much about, and I realise that none of this is relevant anymore. You know, I could talk to the players about what I plan to achieve. I won't be here to achieve it. I'm really scared for what the AI is going to do to this squad, because we've built a very, very good team, and I feel like it's going to get ruined. But you know what? Good news. We were manager of the month to end things, so we're ending on kind of a high. You know, didn't win the Champions League, won manager of the month. I'm fine. Top goal scorer this season, by the way, was Celik with 30 goals. Kind of surprised he only got 6 assists. I thought it'd be way higher than that, but yeah, not the most impressive total, especially when you compare that against the likes of Rojas and Faye, who still really, they've proven their worth. Considering they were players we signed in the Championship, well, in the case of Rojas, that is, Faye preceded that quite a bit. Look, we have to be proud, don't we, of what these players achieved. I feel like often in Park to Prem, you kind of get to the Championship, sign a load of players to get to the Championship, get promoted, and then you have to replace all those players again. Whereas actually, I look at the core of this team, players like Rojas, players like Bolton, who we did sign in our promotion season in the Championship. Lehman as well, I think, was on loan for us from Tottenham in the Championship, and then we signed him upon our promotion. Just really good bits of business. I feel like Lehman, by the way, for 15 million, that doesn't get talked about enough, does it? Like, I know his polygon isn't the most exciting, and his technicals are kind of very meh. But in terms of his physicals, in terms of his mentals, in terms of what he's produced for us for £14.5 million, that might be one of the best transfers of the save. I'm bigging up Lehman. He got the most assists. Elsewhere, Alex. I really want Alex here to stay at the club long term. When we go into the future later on this week, I'm hoping he is like the man they've built around, because to be honest, he's been absolutely sensational in 3 years for us. And at 21 years old, maybe he could go on to be the Rugby Town record appearance holder or something. That's what I really hope. I mean, what I do hope, to be honest, is that with this young team, and let's be honest, it is still a young team. It's easy to forget players like Mark Anderson are 21 years old. Bailey Salmon, he is also 20 years old. Players who are featured in the first team a lot could still play at this team for the next 15 years. Anyway, I'm talking now a lot about the team as it is now. Shall we go back a little bit? Look at the team that was. I fancy doing this. Let's hop in a time machine together. I can't remember exactly what save games I've got available, but I have definitely saved some. And you know what makes me happy? I have a save game from the start of episode number 1. I have a save game that just starts on this screen here. Rugby Town Hire. Work the space. Oh my word, this feels like a lifetime ago. I guess it kind of was a lifetime ago in Football Manager sense. Look at this team. The memories, they're starting to flood back of the starting squad. Remember this? We had a James Mace, our kind of amazing-ish centre-back who was injured for weeks to start the year. We had Roger Lee of Bermuda, the international. He was here. I mean, look at these polygons. It's easy to forget this is where the save game began. David Kolodinsky here holds the record in real life for most Rugby Town appearances. In our save game, he is still at the club as a scout, which makes me feel warm and fuzzy. The fact that he's been here from the beginning to the end. And actually, speaking of people who have been here from the beginning to the end, can you guys remember, where is he? Where is the man I'm looking for here? Jason Lands. Jason Lands, he's still at the club. Remember, he's just a bloke who hangs around. He was at the club when we first came in. You can see even in this situation here, because he was the chairman before I came in, he still has this weird glitched contract where it has no expiry date, no wages, but he does have an appearance fee as a coach. Yeah, he was here from the beginning. He was here to the end. I do feel oddly emotional just seeing Butlin Road on the home screen. I don't know why. It just it feels like a past life lived or something. Of course, we had a media prediction of 12th. We joined with the team in 13th. To be fair, we nearly got sacked after our first season. It was not a particularly great first year, was it? We joined the club with 4 wins in 17 games, 5 points above the drop. I feel like we finished like really mediocrity, kind of mid-table at the end of this year. But when I look through these teams, when I think back on away days, kind of funny to see where it all began. So the next save game I got, I believe, is the save before episode number 19, and this is now starting to look a little more familiar, isn't it? We had upgraded some of the youth facilities, I think, at this point. Jake Cartwright was at the club as captain with 9 goals in 32 games. We had an FA Trophy semi-final against Kidderminster Harriers, which, if I'm not mistaken, we lost. You have an opportunity here to rewrite history a little bit with these save games, should you take the plunge. Rio McAvoy, I mentioned him earlier. He had a lot of goals this year. 46 goals he had, but sadly he was injured to end the year. And of course we had Daniel Oyetunde as well. Some really good attackers actually for this level, as well in the league. You might remember we were in the Southern League Premier Central where we were topped by 10 points with only a handful of games left. We dominated the stats. Average rating rise, Callum Gillan was up there as well alongside the other 2 strikers. And yeah, it's all coming back to me now. This was like the period where we just had too many attackers, wasn't it? We had players like Ahol Chuddy in the team. Kelly was in the team. If you're wondering what happened to Sam Kelly, I think he retired in his mid-20s. Norman Hamilton was here. Oh, God, I forgot about Norman Hamilton. Don't actually know whatever happened to Norman Hamilton's career. I feel like I should go check at some point. Of course, we had some really good young players as well, like Isaac Pritchard, Ahol Chuddy, but sadly, and I can only apologise for this really, this save game is at the point where Miles Maycock had already left the club. He'd already gone to Salford at this point. He'd broken hearts. If you choose to pick up the save game here, suppose you can bring him back. So I have got a few more save games at different points, but if I went through them all, we'd be here for a little while. I will include them all, though, when I share it out. Here we have the team in League One. Yeah, 2030 is the year here. On the cusp of promotion, are you going to be able to lead Rugby Town to glory? Are you going to drop into the playoffs and have to live out a very different timeline? At this point, you can see it was a 3-horse race at the top of the table, and that was largely in thanks, really, to the likes of Ferrarinson and Guerrero. I'll tell you what, looking at Guerrero's profile here, knowing that he ended up at Man City really does hit different. He was such a good player. Knowing how good he is for Man City now, part of me does wish he'd been along for more of the journey. Of course, he signed for us in League 2, had an immense year in League 1, but we'd sell him shortly after we made it to the Championship. I'm looking at the team here. There's Ricky D in at right back. Ricky D, if I'm not mistaken, is trapped in Scotland in present day time. Signed on a free transfer. 20 assists in League 1. I feel like he really did peak this season. Totally forgot he was a thing. Ferrarinson was at the club, wasn't he? Yeah, Ferrarinson, the Icelandic forward, who we signed on some mental deal, who proved that you don't need mentals to play in League One. You just need to be able to run fast and jump okay. His polygon is one of the weirdest polygons I've ever seen. It looks like a glitch, doesn't it? It just looks like a glitch. At this point, we had as well, haven't we, started to settle on kind of the 4-2-2-2 as the system, but Guerrero had been playing out on the wing and playing very, very well. João Victor was now at the club as well at 19 years old. This was his first year at the club, and Sam Fay should be here. He is here. Here is a 16-year-old Sam Fay. He doesn't look an age younger, does he, or older, depending on how you want to view the timeline. What a player he was. Even when he first generated, we knew he was going to be very, very good. 10 goals in this League One season for him was mighty impressive. Murphy and Goma at centre attacking mid. Soonsup Bell at striker. I feel like some people might argue this is peak Rugby Town at this point here in kind of April. I'm looking at the team now, I'm thinking it might be where it peaked for me. The save game in terms of household names like Gasperi as well in the team. Players like Masters, who we've snapped up off his amateur contract. Callum Goldsmith, Toby Hines. Oh, I don't know. It feels weird going back through the old save games, and for American fans out there, you can try and make William Espinoza a Rugby Town legend as well, I suppose. You could show him the bias that I showed Sam Fay. It's kind of funny and easy to forget as well how good our youth recruitment was at this point. We'd really been just focusing on the youth recruitment, haven't we, for the first, well, many, many years. It's easy to forget, I suppose, at this point. This was only 7 or 8 years into the save game. This was still kind of at an early point, like the halfway point, really. I wonder how differently things would have been had we got stuck in League One. You know, would it have been more difficult to keep hold of Guerrero? Would I have just kept Guerrero for longer, I suppose, is the other question, because we did ultimately sell him when we made it to the Championship. He is so good, isn't he? The fact he's on 650 quid for 3 years, you know what, that probably is exploitative, isn't it, as a contract? And you can see here my manager profile at this point in history. It's kind of interesting to see how much it has improved even in more recent years. I mean, when you look at this list of achievement and history, it looks kind of impressive, doesn't it? But I'm looking at these attributes here. These are very kind of meh. If I'm not mistaken, these have ended up much, much higher. Kind of funny that my adaptability has just remained at 1 for the whole save game since we just stayed in England. You can see here, by the way, a list of all the different save games I do have at different points in time. There are plenty here for people to look at. Speaking of which, I don't know what this one is. 102 intro. It's the 21st of June. It must be a transfer special. Why have I kept this save game? Because when I'm going through the save, I have weekly auto saves on, but then I kind of manage the save files. Otherwise, I'd run out of hard drive space very, very quickly. What was special about this point in time? It was the 21st of June. We just lost the Premier League to Arsenal. This was the second year in a row where we'd finished second, I think. Is this the second year in a row? Yeah, second year in a row where we'd finished second. So this was the year where we'd then go on to win the Premier League. Celik had been playing for us. I guess my intentions behind this save game were, I don't know what they were. I guess at the time I was just sick of bottling the league, and I thought, I'll keep this one because people might want to try and unbottle the league if I lose it for a third time in a row. Of course, we didn't lose it for a third time in a row, so we don't have to view things like that. In fact, you can see here, it even includes this save file, kind of the gaps in the team where I was planning a summer transfer window. The one player who I see in this list who I feel like a bit of a what if about is David Gilliland. I wish I'd done more with David Gilliland over the years, but Yeah, he just didn't develop quite enough. I feel like he must have insane potential because even like in present day, my staff rate him as having the best potential out of pretty much everyone in the team. They still think he has 5-star potential. I wonder if you went to an earlier save game, if you could kind of force him into the team a little bit more and maybe develop him better than I did. In terms of the rest of the team, though, of course, at this point, it was fairly settled. Haddad in goal. A good goalkeeper, not a great goalkeeper. I feel like goalkeepers we never really solved at Rugby Town. Okay, I remember why I saved this save game now. I was offered the Liverpool job. So if you want the alternative timeline where you turn heel before leading Rugby Town to glory, and you want to just go to Liverpool, maybe you want to manage Estrada. I don't know why. I was going to say I don't know why you'd want to do that. I kind of have a feeling I know why you might want to do that. Yeah, in this save game, you could, well, go and take over a Liverpool team who won the league the previous year and then finished 6th in 2035. I feel like if you do that, you're a bad person. I'm looking through the team here. It kind of makes me appreciate how little the team changed in the last few years. Like, the last couple of years, we really did stick with what we knew, just added the odd player here and there to add a little bit of strength. But yeah, if you want to take over rugby on the cusp of winning a Premier League title, that's an option for you. Now, I will admit I have kept those overviews fairly brief, simply because I could go into infinite detail with each. But I feel like just showing each for a couple of minutes, going through things, looking at a couple of memories is always nice. The save games are going to be available in due course, so you will be able to just check it all out yourself if you so wish. Anyway, to end things today, I do want to have a little look at my history, my profile, and also the club history, just different record holders and stuff, simply because when we simulate into the future, it'd be interesting to see how some of those things change. So first things first, here is my manager profile. 70% win rate is really good, 753 games played. Not too shabby if I might say so myself. You can see here as well, our attributes. Yeah, I mentioned the fact they improved in recent years. They really, really did improve, and I'm also laughing a little bit at this bit here, where we won so many awards last year, we actually broke the table for the awards. That's kind of funny, isn't it? Here's a little detailed look, by the way, at my manager history. Total value of players sold, 1 billion. Yeah, we hit 1 billion in players sold. Players bought, to be fair, not a million miles away from that. 960 million. Here are the overall stats. Of course, the career stats versus the club stats are pretty much the same. We are going to end this save game with 4,930 days in charge at Rugby Town. That sounds like a long time. I think that's because it is a long time. Here's a little overview as well of the club history. We won pretty much everything here, didn't we? Except a Champions League. Actually, an interesting point here, the Champions League thing. How do people feel about the kind of save ending with a Champions League final? Because I was thinking about it over the weekend. I actually kind of like the idea that Prem has an end goal and that getting to a Champions League final is the end goal. I don't want to set it as kind of a hard rule, but I do feel like it's kind of, it gives you something to build anticipation for, the fact that basically with Prem, I think what we say is if we win a Premier League, upon reaching our first Champions League final, the save ends irrespective of the result. At that point, it's a case of, will we end with the save ending on a high? Will it end like it did this year? I feel like it adds a bit of an end goal to things, which sometimes I struggled with in Prem. And it also adds a bit of jeopardy and risk factor towards that Champions League final. It's kind of that iceberg on the horizon. Maybe it leads to situations where I don't want to reach the Champions League final certain years because it's prematurely. Of course, in that situation, I could keep playing on the save game. But in terms of just adding a point, maybe aiming to win the Champions League, win the Premier League, get to a Champions League final and kind of have those two things as the aim. Maybe that's the way to go going forward. Never had an end goal in Prem before. I always get people asked, but actually, I kind of enjoyed the stakes and kind of how things have ended this year. You can see here the different landmarks over the course of the history of the club. This is the kind of thing, isn't it, that I could look through, but really, it's a wall of information, isn't it? I do kind of like the fact that we only ever were led by Brian. You know, Brian Melvin left, Mansbridge came in 2028. I wonder how long Brian number 2 is going to stick around for. And in terms of facilities, of course, we improved the facilities a lot initially, especially the youth recruitment, which I guess technically isn't a facility. But beyond that, actually, we haven't improved the facilities a ton. They've actually degraded a little bit, the youth facilities in recent years, and the board won't let me improve them. Be interesting to see how these are looking when we do sim into the future. Here is the history in terms of managers. I don't know what I was expecting it. It's just me and then Carl Addons who preceded me. I don't know what Carl's up to these days. I can't click on his name to find out. Here's a little look as well at the club records. I mentioned David Kolodinsky earlier, the fact he's still at the club as a scout. He's actually a pretty bloody good scout as well, the 48-year-old. Love the fact he's still here. When we resign in a moment, I'm hoping he won't leave the club. I'd kind of like him to just stay forever, if that's okay. Most goals by a player in the season, by the way. Rio McAvoy is up there with the most league and overall goals. Highest average rating, Jude Soon-Sup-Bell. I love the fact that when it comes to these stats, it's not all just kind of stats from the start of the save game or the end. There really is a blend as we've kind of gone through all the different leagues. Youngest player, by the way, Jack Skidmore holds the record for youngest player. He, of course, came through our academy. He now plays for Barnet in the kind of National League. He's actually their captain as well. I love it when there's kind of players who came through our academy that I've forgotten about that have actually gone on to have reasonable careers. He does not look like a terrible non-league footballer. Considering he was playing for us at 15 in the Southern League Premier Central and he now plays in the National League, if I hadn't climbed up all the leagues, if Rugby Town was an AI-managed team from all those years earlier, I wonder if he would have gone on to be like a really big player for them in the non-leagues. I'd forgotten about Adam Abbas. Retired at 28, bless him, the former Burner youngster. He set the record for 5 goals in a game. That has stood now for the last 11 years. Most assists by a player, by the way. Matty Waters got 27 assists in 1 year. That's kind of mental, isn't it, for a wing-back? I feel like at Rugby Town, we've always been about the wing-backs. Sam Fay holds the record for youngest goal scorer. James Mace, who was at the club when we started the save game, you might remember, he was the guy who was injured right at the very beginning. He holds the record for oldest goal scorer at almost 39 years old. I mean, there's a whole host of other stats you can see here. It's going to hurt when I see most run of matches without losing at 31. I really wanted to go on that long unbeaten run. I'm so annoyed it ended prematurely this year. It's funny to see how the attendances have grown over the years, and also how in years where we had a good FA Cup run, it spiked a lot. Look at all the glory supporters that turned up in 2026 for the game against Barnsley. Sickening. I think my favourite part of any save game, though, is the overall best 11. I don't know why. It just felt like a really good snapshot at the end of a save game of kind of the team that was. Interesting to see that our best 11 is still using the 4-1-3-2 that we were using years and years ago, right at the beginning of the save game. Josh Keeley is in goal in this kind of lineup. I feel like it's a testament to how much we've struggled with goalkeepers. The fact that the goalkeeper with the most appearances here is 110. Elsewhere, Haddad made 100 appearances in goal. In terms of the starting 11, you can see most goals went to Sam Fay with 175. Most appearances by anyone in this list as well is Sam Fay as well. Murphy and Gomer just living it up in Saudi Arabia, the second highest on that list. Just as a reminder, he's earning £500,000 a week. And he's only 28. Murphy and Gomer's going to go on to secure the bag for a load of years, I think. I love the fact, actually, when it comes to this best 11, so many of the players are still at the club. The entire back four are players still at the team. Obviously, there's the likes of Fay and Chelik. Riviere in there at deep-lying kind of defensive midfielder, playing now for Barcelona on loan from Atleti. That feels weird, does it not? The fact he's been loaned to Barcelona from Atleti? I know players have made that move in real life, fully aware of that. Bit weird, really, isn't it? Soon-Sup-Bell, by the way, at the end of the current save game, is a free agent. So if you do play on from 2037, please sign him so he doesn't retire. Give him a job. And like I mentioned already, the likes of Sam Kelly, who was there right at the very beginning of the save game, did retire in his mid-20s, but kind of cool to see a player who was in our academy, came through in our very first year, still holding down a spot in the overall best 11. I've never used this screen before, but if you go to history players and then look through the team on different years, you can actually see players who are still active now and where they are, which is kind of interesting because some of these players, like, they do still have careers. Although, why is it showing? This isn't actually filtering players correctly, is it? Because this is showing players from the entire save game, even though I've set a season. Okay. Well, yeah, I'll tell you what. If you ever, I didn't even know this was. Did anyone know this was a screen? If you just want to look at every single player that's ever played for Rugby Town, you can literally come to history players and see what everyone is up to now. Like, there's players here that I don't even recognise. Mind you. There's definitely some players here who never played for me, which is making me very, very confused. There are players like Dan Roberts who did play for me, to be clear, but yeah, there's players here that I'm sat thinking, I do not know this man. Like, why is this man showing up as a player who played for me? No idea. But yeah, if you want to just look through player, I guess you could look through this. So I got very distracted by this screen. I've played Football Manager for 20 years, never seen this screen before in my life. It's probably been broken for years in Football Manager. and no one at SI's noticed, because they don't know it exists either. It definitely has that kind of vibe, doesn't it? I feel like when it comes to a save game like this, I could dive into it in infinite detail, but ultimately, that would not make for necessarily the most entertaining video. Instead of me doing that, obviously, in due course, you guys will have a chance to get hands-on with it. And just as a little reminder, we are still doing the in the future videos. They will be starting in a day or two's time. I've still got to simulate forward. I'm going to try and go 100 years. I'm really hoping Rugby Town are still in the Premier League in 100 years. Anyway, there is only one last thing to do to end the save game today and the episode today, and that is resign as manager. Not accidentally this time, might I add. The Space quits the Coventry Building Society arena. Yeah, good career. Gino's gutted. Absolutely good. Never saw this coming. Hashtag thank you the Space. No, Gino. Thank you. Rugby Town are in search of their next manager. Yeah, we'll see who gets it next time out when we go into the future. I can update my things to follow and unfollow. I love the fact that I've left the club and Kenny, my personal assistant, said, like, do you want to unfollow Rugby Town? Leave the club, instantly unfollow them on all social media. I'm going to fire Kenny. Kenny, that is unacceptable, son. There has also been a mass exodus upon my departure. I'm looking for people here. I don't think Kolodinsky's left the club as good. Harry Kane, though, has walked out. Me and Harry Kane were tight. I'm just wondering, has the man of the hour been made caretaker manager again? That's all I care about at this point. Where is the caretaker manager? Don't worry, everyone. Jason Lands is staying at the club. Our legacy goes on. Or something. I love the fact he's just still there. I'll tell you what, if the next manager fires him, I'm going to kick up a stink. Also, I've resigned, and now loads of other people are just resigning as well. I am a trendsetter. Okay, folks, well, Pirates Prem, I guess, in terms of the actual playing of the save game, is done. Finito. Like I mentioned a load of times in this video. In the future videos coming later this week, the Japan save game, just as a little reminder, will be starting in a few weeks' time. There is going to be some content in the intermission. I am, however, going to be moving house, so it won't be as frequent as you're used to. It's going to be a stressful few weeks for me, but when we're back, we're going to be back with a bang. And all I really want to say is thank you for watching the save game. If you've got to the end of the last episode, please do drop a like on things. We'll be back next year for Park to Prem. There's stuff in the intermission. Hope you're excited for the future stuff. Just a little reminder, channel members of the first team regular and above, we have a stream tonight. I hope to see some of you guys there. Thank you so much for watching. Have a lovely rest of your Monday. We'll be back later with more Park to Prem action. And until then, it's me, Jack. I'll talk to you guys in a bit. I'm out.